Hello, it's me, Mike, with HPDS. This video will be a reading and a study of Exodus chapter 24. That's Exodus chapter 24. Before I get started, per usual, I will read the Lord's Prayer. And it reads, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. All right. So, Exodus, if you remember the book of Exodus, obviously we're in the book in which the children of Israel are taken by God out of Egypt, and they are brought into Sinai, into the wilderness of Sinai. They're at this point in chapter 24, we will find that the children are already up on Mount Sinai. They're listening to God. They've been listening to him for a while. They've seen the 10 great plagues. They came across the Passover, quail, manna, water. There was a court system set up, battle with Amalek and so forth. But chapter 23, if you remember, chapter 23 was some more judgments. And we saw that the Lord's angels. So remember, there was some laws regarding ethics. There was observance. They were told to observe the 3 feasts. Then they were told about this angel of the Lord and how that they were going to have conquest of the land, how it was assured for them as long as they listened to the word of God and they didn't do anything bad, because the angel wouldn't. Remember, the angel would not forgive their transgressions or something along those lines. This angel is going to be a strict angel because they were going to war. So that's where we're at. He's been up there for the past few chapters giving laws to these children of Israel. And so before I get started, what I'll do like normal is I'll read Exodus 24, and then I'll actually reread it and see what the Holy Spirit has to say about the conversation. So what I will go ahead and do is I will bring up this. Let's see. Here's what we're looking at, Exodus 24. This chapter is called the Book of the Covenant. And what we're looking for in this particular chapter, it's a relatively short chapter. It's only 18 verses. And the first half of it, verses 1 through 8, Moses is going to sacrifice to the Lord. Moses sacrifices to the Lord. And then the rest of the chapter, verses 9 through 18, Moses is going to meet with God on the mountain. Moses meets God on the mount. So Moses goes up there, and that's what we're looking for in this particular chapter. So, once again, here it is. I'll read Exodus 24, and we'll go from there. And Exodus 24 reads, And he said unto Moses, Come up unto the Lord, thou and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye far off. And Moses alone shall come near the Lord, but they shall not come nigh, neither shall the people go up with him. And Moses came and told the people all the words of the Lord, and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice, and said, All the words which the Lord hath said we will do. And Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, and rose up early in the morning, and builded an altar under the hill, and 12 pillars, according to the 12 tribes of Israel. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. And he took the book of the covenant and read in the audience of the people, and they said, All that the Lord hath said we will do, and be obedient. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, Behold, the blood of the covenant which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet as it were a paved work of a sapphire stone, and as it were the body of heaven in his clearness. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid not his hand. Also they saw God, and did eat and drink. And the Lord said unto Moses, Come up to me into the mount, and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone, and a law, and commandments, which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. And Moses rose up, and his minister Joshua, and Moses went up into the mount of God. And he said unto the elders, Tarry ye here for us, until we come again unto you, and behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come unto them. And Moses went up into the mount, and a cloud covered the mount. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the 7th day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud, and gat him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. So that was Exodus 24 in its entirety. And let's see. And what did we just read in that chapter? We read about a couple of things. We at the beginning, we're seeing that Moses sacrificed to the Lord. So Moses does sacrifice to the Lord, and then the second part of that chapter, we came across the fact that Moses meets God up on the mountain, but it's not just Moses, it's actually a few other elders with him. So 70 elders along with Aaron. And so it's kind of going to be a big deal, and they see him. And of course they've been seeing this storm, and they've seen him on the mountain as it is, or as the storm. And now they're going to actually, these elders are going to get to. So the regular people, remember, there's about probably like 1 million people down there. But only these few people are going to get to actually see the Lord. And so that's going to be something to keep in mind and to be very interesting. And hold on, I'm messing with a few technical issues here. And I shouldn't spend too much time doing this, because it's something that is a technical issue. Whatever. It'll have to do. Okay, so per usual again, basically what I'll go ahead and do now is I will read this chapter over again, and we'll see what the Holy Spirit has to say regarding this matter. So Exodus 24. It reads, And he said unto Moses, Come up unto the Lord, thou and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye far off. So remember, everybody has, up to this point, they've all been kind of at the base of this mountain. I think Moses has actually gone up a little bit, and then now he's come back a few times to tell these people, remember, and so here he kind of does that again. And this time he tells them to bring up Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel, and worship ye. So he tells them to kind of come back up, but worship from afar off. And Moses alone shall come near to the Lord. So he's going to come back to the Lord and come, but everybody else, you're going to have to stay kind of far off. So he has all these elders, and God, and so Moses came up and told all. So you see how he comes back to tell the people all the words of the Lord. So everybody should be able to hear him. So they should have been expecting this, because they heard God speaking. Moses was kind of up there, but God told Moses, now go grab these guys and bring them up closer than where they are now. So That's why Moses goes and does that. And of course, he tells all the people all the words of all the Lord and all the judgments, and all the people answered with one voice and said, all the words which the Lord had said, we will do. And that comes, remember, from a while back, there was also when they started making this covenant. And I want to say that was as far back as, where was it? Exodus 20. Yeah, that's when they started. No, actually, the Exodus 19, I think, is when they actually come. Exodus 19 is when he kind of makes mention of this Sinaitic covenant, is what they call it. So as far back as chapter 19, we're in chapter 24. So it's just the same thing. They're telling her everything that we're hearing, everything that God says, we will do. And that's what he's saying. That's what they're saying right here. All the words which the Lord had said we will do. So they're agreeing to the covenant. All these laws that they're hearing, they are accepting them. They say they will follow them, and they know that if they follow them, they will be a peculiar treasure, is what God had called them. And of course, Moses wrote all the words of the Lord, and rose up early in the morning and builded an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. So here he is back with the people. And at this point, they've all been told and know that God is speaking with Moses, and they have proof and they've heard it and so forth. Now God comes down here and he writes all the words. So there's like a lot of, I would call like in redundancy. There's a lot of redundancy here, which is a good thing when it comes to laws and legalese and with logic in general. You've got a bunch of redundancy. So everybody heard these words. Moses came back and told them what he said and what God said. So they are now hearing both sides of the story, and they should have already heard God's side of the story. And now Moses is writing it all down so that they can all confirm what they heard and what Moses heard, and everybody knows what was heard and what was written, what was heard. So that's what's going on. A bunch of redundancy. So he wrote all the words of the Lord, and that's what we're going to see in a few verses later, where it calls the book of the covenant. So he writes the words, and then in the morning he rose up early and he builds an altar under the hill and 12 pillars according to the 12 tribes of Israel. So he builds an altar down there under the hill and 12 pillars. And here he is, like I said, these are the first 8 verses. Here he is sacrificing. And he sent young men of the children of Israel, which offered burnt offerings and sacrificed peace offerings of oxen unto the Lord. So he sent young men. So he sent younger guys, and they went out there. They offered the burnt offerings and they sacrificed the peace offerings. So he did that. All of the, that's just what's going on here. They're doing this. And Moses took half of the blood and put it in basins, and half of the blood he sprinkled on the altar. So remember the altar, remember, as far back as it was in chapter 20 is when God told us about those commandments. And at the end of it, if you watch that video, chapter 20, I make mention that they had commandments about how this altar should be built. And it should be built with dirt or rocks, basically. Just dirt or rocks. And that was it. They couldn't put any tools on it. So basically, that's what this was. An altar here. And they were offering sacrifices on this pile of dirt over here. But Moses takes the blood, and half of it he puts in basins, and then the other half he starts sprinkling on the altar, which is this basically pile of dirt, pile of stones and dirt, ultimately is what it is. And he took the book of the covenant and read it in the audience of the people. And they said all that the Lord had said we will do and be obedient. So here's more redundancy. He reads the book to them that day. He reads them all. This is everything that God said, and this is everything I said, and these are the words and so forth. These are the laws that we are coming to agree. And everybody basically agreed to this. So they're all listening to him. And remember, there's a lot of people here that would have probably been here. All the people would have been doing it. They would have all been coming around during the day to listen to this and hear what was going on. And they were all, accepting these laws because they just seen all these great miracles over the past few months now. And Moses took the blood and sprinkled it on the people and said, behold, the blood of the covenant, which the Lord hath made with you concerning all these words. So he's taking all the blood from the basins and he's sprinkling it on the people. So there's a real, a lot of sacrifice going on, and this blood is, and this is all very, God is really being, this isn't some shallow nonsense here. This is all a very deep, like, for example, in today's world, this is something that I would call, most people in their sheltered lives, they would be very, traumatized by this kind of action. What's going on here? They're all getting blood sprinkled on them. This animal blood is getting sprinkled on them after they've seen all this crazy storm and they've heard the voice of God. And so this would have all been very traumatizing for the people. Keep that in mind. At least for people of today's world, not maybe necessarily back in that day, but people in today's world, if this happened to us, this would be pretty traumatizing, quite traumatizing for a lot of people. This is not, like I said, it's very significant what's going on. It is sacrifice. There is blood involved in sacrifice. That is what God is saying. There is blood involved in sacrifice. That is what sacrifice is. Sacrifice. It's not a guy, and it's all going to be, pertaining to explain, later on when God makes his sacrifice of Jesus Christ, with his only begotten son. But here we're seeing the effects of what it means to sacrifice. And it is, like I said, it's a big deal. It's not a small matter. There's a lot of people getting blood sprinkled all over them. There's a lot of blood, a lot of death of animals in front of all these people. There's a lot going on right now, and it's all very important. Behold the blood of the covenant. Let's see. Then went up Moses and Aaron, Nadab and Abihu, and 70 of the elders of Israel. So God, here goes Moses, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu, and 70 of the elders. So these are really important people at the moment in this group of children of Israel. And they saw the God of Israel, and there was under his feet, as it were, a paved work of sapphire stone, and as it were, the body of heaven in his clearness. So what it's saying here is that they go up and they see under his feet paved work is just what it means, like the pavement from a street. It's all very paved, so the road is made of this sapphire stone. And I think some other, they call it let me see, I'm checking out the American King James, American Standard. Some of them call it lapis, I forget what it's called, lapis lazuli or something. None of these versions that I have actually calls it that. They all call them sapphire, it looks like. But some of it call it lapis lazuli. It's a blue stone. So they're seeing this blue road. It's kind of this magnificent blue road, sapphire stone. And as it were, it was clear sapphire. So, let's take a look to see if we can't. Clear sapphire images. Let's see, hopefully, clear sapphire, and I spelled it one images. So this is what they're kind of seeing, this kind of pavement. It's real clear sapphire. Look, it's real white, real clear. Clear as the heaven, it says. So it's really calling it this blue color. And so you could see, that's what they see, this beautiful blue color. So obviously this mountain can't necessarily, we know what a mountain looks like, and mountains don't necessarily, so they're seeing these 70 elders along with Moses, Aaron, Nadab, and Abihu. 74, seems like 74 guys up there. They get to see this, that suddenly there's something that wasn't there. It was a paved road of this beautiful sapphire stone over here, of this kind of color, this kind of bluer color right here is what I would be saying. As it were, in the body of heaven in his clearness, and it's real clear. So it's something that shouldn't be there. Suddenly it's there. It's another great miracle, another great sign that they are seeing. And upon the nobles of the children of Israel he laid not his hand. Also they saw God and did eat and drink. So they saw God here, and God didn't destroy them like they thought would happen. And in fact, they actually sat there and ate and drank there for, the afternoon or the evening, whatever kind of time it was. So they saw a great miracle. They went up there. God, just like a great king, invited these elders, these important people of this other nation, and they sat and ate with him, and they saw his great, pavement here. And the Lord said unto Moses, come up to me into the mount and be there, and I will give thee tables of stone and the law and commandments which I have written, that thou mayest teach them. So God is still talking to these people using Moses as their ambassador, basically, and he's saying that he's going to be their king, and the people are meeting him. The elders, which would basically be like their rulers, their politician type people, they all are up here. They're all in agreement. They've all said that this God is going to be their king. They're all seeing his power. They're seeing his greatness. And they are realizing, and they are being told that Moses is their ambassador to him. And so they are agreeing to all these regulations and so forth. And so it's a real hefty meeting, because all these people are allowing their government, their elders, to be swearing allegiance to a king, and this king is a otherworldly God almost. He owns everything, but he is the true God, and he does not seem like any other man they've ever known or come across. Even Moses is nowhere near being like what this man is, what this God is like. But he tells Moses, come up to me in the mountain and be there. So he's going to give him these tables of stone and the law and the commandments, so that he can teach them. So he's still telling there's still more to this meeting. So you're going to come up here, even though, your elders have come and witnessed me. Now I'm going to speak to you myself, and I'm going to give you these tables of stone, the law, the commandments, and you're going to teach the people. Okay. And so Moses rose up, and here's his minister Joshua. And Moses went up to the mount of God. So you see, remember, Joshua is basically he's like his minister. So let's see what minister word means. It's a member of the clergy, head of government department, attend to the needs of someone. So yeah, that's what Joshua is. Joshua is kind of like what we could also say like an assistant, a bodyguard, kind of all those things. So he's like I said, he probably was the one in charge of all the people that were protecting the mountain back in chapter 19. Remember when God first told them, don't let anybody come up to the mountain, or they're going to be shot, or with the rocks, or they're going to be shot through. Well, Joshua was probably in charge of that. And now he's also kind of in charge. He goes up there with Moses, but he's just, he's basically escorting Moses as far as he can escort him. And Moses went up into the mount of God, and he tells the elders, and he said unto the elders, tarry ye here for us, until we come again unto you. And behold, Aaron and Hur are with you. If any man have any matters to do, let him come into them. So he's saying, all right, while I'm gone, stay here. So they're basically where they were able to see God, and they see that pavement, and where they eat and drink. And he tells them, Aaron and Hur are in charge. These guys, Aaron and Hur. And Aaron is not one of them. He must have been one of these 70 elders, more than likely. But Aaron and Hur are with you, and they have, if you have any problems, go to them. And so, of course, this is going to be the start of where we see in a few more chapters what's going to end up really bad happening. And it's going to be because Moses isn't there, and Aaron is not doing the greatest job. He's not going to do the greatest job, and it's going to go bad for the children of Israel. And Moses went up to the mount, and a cloud covered the mountain. So, of course, as Moses goes up there, then a cloud comes and covers everything. So now the people can't even see what's going on up there. And the glory of the God abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And the seventh day he called unto Moses out of the midst of the cloud. So when he gets up there, it sounds like Moses was just kind of by himself for 6 days. And the glory of the Lord abode upon him, upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days. And then on the seventh day, that's when God actually comes out to Moses. And he calls out to him. So when Moses goes up the mountain, there's this cloud that covers him. So he's there by himself, or, would have been pretty, it's pretty interesting, because remember, God did tell Moses earlier in the book of Exodus that he would be like God to the people, and Moses would be like and Aaron would be like a prophet to God, to the people. And so So here he is, and remember, God created the whole world in he created all of existence in 6 days, and on the seventh day he rested. And here he is leaving Moses up there, remember, who's like a god to the people for 6 days. And what did Moses do while he was up there for 6 days? Who knows? I'm sure he just probably prayed, but I'm sure he did not create all of existence while he was there in those 6 days. It wasn't until the seventh day that God called out to him. And in the sight of the so they would have all, so that's interesting too, because all the people would have heard God speaking to Moses. Then Moses came down, and then Moses went back up, and as soon as Moses goes up, nobody hears anything for 6 days. God, it wasn't until the seventh day until God came out and spoke to them. Well, to Moses, but I imagine the people should have still been able to hear, and they would have still been supposed to be listening, and that they stopped doing it seems to be the problem. But I'm sure that everybody, if they were close enough, they should have been able to hear God speaking, even though this is happening, even though he's speaking specifically to Moses. And the glory of the Lord abode upon Mount Sinai, and the cloud covered it 6 days, and the seventh day. So yeah, there's a 7th day. And the sight of the glory of the Lord was like devouring fire on the top of the mount in the eyes of the children of Israel. And Moses went into the midst of the cloud and gat him up into the mount. And Moses was in the mount 40 days and 40 nights. So you see that it's all like real quiet for 6 days. It's just a cloud that covers it for 6 days. And then on the 7th day, when God comes to speak, it was like a devouring fire on the top. So again, there's this fire, and Moses is inside of it. So, and I've made mention in previous videos, so I'll kind of make, Hollywood, kind of how they make things backwards. And I've made mention, there's of course a movie called The Lord of the Rings. And if you remember the original movie of the Lord of the Rings saga, there was the bad guy named Sauron, and he was basically like a fiery eye up at the top of like this pillar. And that's really, like I said, they're really mocking God here, because if you know what God was, that's what God would have looked like to these people. They would have seen this fire in the top of the mountain, and they knew Moses was up there, and they could hear the speaking of God. They could hear God speaking, and they knew that what was going on, and they were, but of course Hollywood turns that into a bad guy. The bad guy is what looks like that, and here in the Bible, that's what God looked like. That's what it looked like for the people of the children of Israel when they were speaking to God. And Moses. And so then Moses went into and so he goes up, and Moses was up there for 40 days and 40 nights. And so that's where we're getting into the start of, where he's gone for 40 days and 40 nights. He's going to get these stones that people say the commandments are written on these stones. We're going to come down. He's going to find some idol worship, and it's not the greatest scenario that he's going to come back to after these 40 days and 40 nights. But that's Exodus 24 in its entirety. It was a pretty short chapter. I'll go ahead and end the video here. And ultimately, we'll get into seeing what exactly happens while he's up there, and of course when he comes back down, and then we'll see, quite a few things, and towards the end of this book. We're already more than halfway through Exodus. Exodus has 40 chapters. It's chapter 24. And he's going up there for the start of the 40 days and 40 nights, even though at this point it's been made clear what is going on to the people of Israel. There's been a lot of redundancy. It's all legal redundancy. God is speaking to the people just like any other king would speak to them. However, God himself is far greater than a king, so he definitely, all the things that they are seeing is much different than they would have expected, or that would be normal for them. It was much different than when they got to Pharaoh, for example, and met Pharaoh. This is a much different. They're making a covenant, so they're all becoming priests. They're all understanding. They're making big decisions is what's going on. Very important stuff, and it's not just a small matter. So it's a very big show of what's going on. God is on this mountain. There is fire. There is chaos to these people. There's loud noises. There's earthquakes. They are terrified. and so forth. And so I'll end this video here. I'll just say, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for future chapter by chapter Bible study. And I pray, God bless you all that may be watching this video. And I pray that we all bless Jesus Christ, and may Jesus Christ bless all of us. Amen.